Welcome to the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Today, my guest is Alan Nochumson from Alan Nochumson PC, right?
That's right, Nochumson PC.
Nochumson PC. Okay, so Alan, I always start off my shows with asking, how did you get started in real estate? In your case, how did you get started in real estate law?
Well, you know what? I worked at a law firm that I worked in their corporate group, and we were just handling a ton of different real estate matters, both litigation and transactional, and I really liked it.
Okay, great. And you're not originally from Philadelphia, right?
No, born and raised in New York. Not many people would know that, but I'm 50 years old, and I've lived here half of my life, so I would consider myself a Philadelphian.
Great. And how did you wind up in Philadelphia? How did that happen?
The person I was with, we met in college. She followed me down to law school. She said, I want to come to Philadelphia. And I was like, great. And it was the best decision of my life.
Right. Okay, great. And like you said, you've been here, half your life. So that's, I think you're a Philadelphia.
That's right. I have Eagles season tickets. I have Sixers season tickets.
So
I root for all the teams.
Okay. So I looked on your website, followed a lot of the things that you're doing. I see you have a big social media presence. You're also teaching, I believe, at Temple, correct?
That's right. I teach in the Fox Business School. I actually teach a course called Real Estate Practice. It's one of the two courses you need to take before you can take the real estate exam as a salesperson.
Okay. And then you're also writing articles, blogs. What aren't you doing? So how can somebody follow you and see some of that?
You can just go on my website, Nochumson.com. But yeah, I write a monthly real estate column for the legal newspaper. I've been doing that for 20 years. And if you go on my website, you will see like hundreds of articles about real estate law. I write a monthly blog called Cracking the Code, where every single month we write about something that's happening in Philadelphia, like change in zoning, change in requirements for land use for real estate matters. So I like writing.
Right. Okay, great. So a ton of information. I was on there. I actually learned several things by going on there. So, 100%, check that out. Okay, so one of the questions I want to talk about, I have one last one. I also saw that you are also going to different real estate offices, doing lunch and learns, talking about different subject matters. What does that look like? And what is like the most popular question? Because this goes out to about 2,000, 3,000 realtors. So what are some of the things that agents are asking you?
Yeah, so we created this endeavor called Nochumson U, where we'll go to a brokerage. So usually we have to have at least 10 or 15 people attend our lunch and learns, and I'll teach on anything, because I have taught on everything. So the last few that we've done top 5 mistakes realtors make when dealing with putting together agreements to sale for newly constructed properties, top 5 mistakes realtors make when dealing with tax abated properties.
Okay.
We try to have practical discussions which could be helpful for real estate brokerages and salespeople.
Okay, great. And knowledge is everything.
That's right.
The more knowledgeable you are, the more trusted you will be with your clients, the more clients you'll end up getting. So that's super, super important. Okay, so now you mentioned about the tax abatement. I also saw on there December 31st is the cutoff. Now, what does that mean as far as the tax abatement is concerned?
Well, there's several types of tax abatements. So for renovated properties, which fall under Ordinance 961, you have to file your tax abatement application paperwork in the same year in which the building permit was issued. So if we had a building permit issued today, November 7th, we would have to file the tax abatement application by December 31st for a renovated property. If it was a newly constructed property, we actually have 60 days from the date of the building permit. So we would have until January 7th.
Okay.
That's for the 10-year tax abatement.
Right.
That's the owner's abatement. There's actually a developer's abatement, which is a 30-month abatement period, where all of those applications have to be filed within the same tax year. It's a moving target. So that's why I tell all my clients, before you do anything, contact me or another attorney, because we see a lot of clients mess that up.
Right, and exactly. Now, for the contractor or the developer, that gives them enough time to get the project up and running. Is that what that abatement's for, or?
Well, no. So basically you're exempting the value of the improvements for whether it's a 30-month period of time or a 10-year period of time. So a lot of people don't understand. They think they have to file the paperwork at the conclusion of the project. That's partially true. You have to actually apply for it as soon as you get the building permit, and there's those timeframes I mentioned. And then once you get a CO for a newly constructed property or certificate of approval for a renovated project, you submit additional paperwork.
Right.
But most people, what they make the mistake at is that they file all the paperwork at the end, and then
you missed the cutoff.
And then you missed the cutoff, and then we deal with that too, where we have to file what's called a petition non-pro-tunc with the Board of Revision of Taxes.
Okay. Now, reading in the paper, the ZBA, the zoning board, they're back in person. Is that going on right now, or is that starting up?
Starting in January, they'll be back in person. So they meet virtually right now every Wednesday, essentially. From either the 9:30 listing, a 2 o'clock listing, or 3:30 listing, and once in a while they'll meet on a Tuesday.
Okay, but starting in January,
They'll
back in person?
I think so. They'll at least will be required. It may be hybrid for maybe community members who can't get there, but
Right.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's because I know the city had like a big emphasis, everybody coming back, to work in person and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
Okay, very good. Okay, so now real estate taxes have pretty much gone up for just about everybody in Philadelphia. And I don't know if I saw it on your website or if I saw it on the social media, but you talked about appealing because you can appeal. Now, who would be an ideal person to appeal your taxes? Because obviously not everybody can appeal because it could be, just a complete waste of time. Yeah. But what is the process and who should be looking to potentially appeal their real estate taxes?
Yeah, so first of all, the cutoff has already happened primarily for most people in Philadelphia. You had to file by the first Monday in October, which I believe was October 7th. I don't have my calendar in front of me. And there are exceptions, like if you're under agreement after October 7th, but before December 31st, you can actually apply for a tax assessment appeal. But the ideal person who would file for a tax assessment appeal would be someone whose taxes not only went up, but their assessment went up to the point where it exceeds the fair market value of the property. What people don't understand is that the real estate assessments in Philadelphia are based on a fair market analysis. So if you have a property that's worth $500,000 and the city believes it's worth $500,000 based on the tax assessment, well, that's probably not a good candidate to file for an appeal. Or how about this? You have a property that's worth $500,000 and your taxes went up and they say now the property's worth $300,000. You're like, okay, my taxes went up. Yeah. Well, that's not something you're going to file an appeal for.
Right, because you'll go.
Yeah, because I tell my clients all the time, it's not. There's multiple ways that this can happen. If I file an appeal and you're being actually still under assessed, the city can say, you know what, you're right, we're wrong.
Right.
It goes up even higher. Yeah. So I think a candidate is someone whose taxes have gone up and the assessed value is out of whack for what the property's worth, where they can have some tax savings.
And they can see what the assessed value or the fair market value. You can go to phila.gov and just look that
That's
up.
right. Yeah. That's right. It's very simple.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now there are ways to lower your taxes, right? There's things like homestead exemption, loop, freeze. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So and actually that deadline's coming up for homestead exemptions.
December 1st.
That's right. So you have to file if it's your primary residence. So let's just do the math, right? For every $100,000 in assessed value in the city, you pay $1,400 in taxes because the tax rate's like 1.399 something, right? So the homestead exemption is $100,000. So let's just play it out. You have a $500,000 piece of property, and the properties are assessed based on the land value and the building value, right? But let's just make it simple. It's $500,000. For every $100,000 in assessed value, you pay $1,400 in taxes. So basically, for $500,000 piece of property, you're paying $7,000 in taxes.
Right.
You file for the homestead exemption. That's your primary residence. $100,000 of the $500,000 is exempt from taxation. So you're saving $1,400. Right. That's a lot of money.
That's big, yeah.
So what should happen is when you purchase your property, your realtor should tell you, hey, make sure you file for the homestead exemption. It's not automatically applied onto your property. So if you haven't done that already, and should look at, the city's website,
Right.
the Office of Property Assessment website, you can apply online. You have to do it by December 1st of this year. And so I would say anyone who's listening to this show, go on the Office of Property Assessment website. If it's your primary residence, I'm saving you $1,400 from the get-go.
Right. And then that's December 1st this year for 2025.
That's right.
In 2025, you can apply, but then you'll get that in 2026.
Yes, if you go past December 1st, then yes, for 20, then it's always rolling.
Right.
But yeah, but why not save the money?
Yeah, well, no, without question,
Yeah.
It's not like you can never apply for again. If you missed it,
Yeah.
you can apply.
Now, there's one caveat. If this is a tax abated property, if you actually have a tax abatement on the property, you can't get both.
both, yeah.
You can't do both. That's right.
Great. And then the loop, that's for like long-term residents?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that. I mean, that program does exist for people who are a little bit older. It's income sensitive, but it's opportunities, to get tax abatements in a way, or exemptions in a way.
And then that would be the same thing for the freeze, because you have the senior freeze.
That's right.
Where they'll look at your income and they'll just freeze your taxes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and there's like a half a dozen or more programs. If you go on the city's website, it's really good for people who are either older or income sensitive.
Right. Yeah, because you can go on the phila.gov, you can put in your, property search, you can put it in there, and it literally gives you homestead, no exemption, homestead exemption, loop, freeze, and it's all right there, and it tells you, what the savings are. So that's one thing with the city. That is actually pretty good, because there's other, counties, townships, other places that really doesn't have that information, so readily available. So,
Yeah.
So the city doesn't do everything great.
No, it's just
they do a good job.
Well, you just gotta know where the information's at. But there is a wealth of information and an ability to save a lot of money if you follow the bouncing ball.
Right. Okay, and then I saw on your website about, and I don't know how familiar you are with this, with the Pennsylvania Historical Tax Credit.
Yeah.
There were some changes there. I think they raised the money that you can get.
I think that, there's a pool of money that's in Pennsylvania. I think it was originally $5 million. I think they went up to $20 million.
Right.
And everyone's fighting for that little piece of the pot of gold. But yeah, there's an opportunity where if you have a historic property and you're making renovations, you can get a piece of that. And then that will help projects, especially in this day and age with rising interest rates, construction costs. Everything helps. Yeah, and there's also a federal a federal tax credit, historic tax credit as well. Where I was talking to one client where we were going to be able to get a tax credit of like $200,000,
right.
And that's that would definitely offset a lot of the costs associated with historic property, which it typically costs a lot more to actually. To renovate or restore historic property as opposed to one that's not historic.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because it costs more money because everything has to be to certain specs.
That's right.
That kind of thing. Okay. Now, is there anything as far as zoning, anything out there that is a big difference that, people should know about, or, it's pretty much like the normal changes?
Well, it's funny you mention that. So our team, every single month, we go on the city's website, city council's website, and we actually look at anything that's proposed or enacted for any matters that deal with business or real estate law. So we were actually doing that yesterday, where we're going to do a year in a review, where we look, and there's a lot. So what happens a lot of times I see is that there's proposals to change the actual zoning classification of a property, where properties get downzoned. So say you have an RM1 property, which means allows for multifamily use, and it gets downgraded hypothetically to RSA 5 for single family use. Sometimes the people who are under contract or interested in the property don't pay attention that these ordinances are pending.
Right.
And what happens is, and what they don't really pay attention to, is the applicability of that pending ordinance, where if the zoning is even being proposed in city council, it may actually now turn into be an RSA 5 property, where that when they purchased the property, all of a sudden they paid RM1 prices for an RSA 5 property, and all of a sudden now you're dealing with me who has to file for a zoning variance.
Now, how would somebody, like a normal person, know that? How would they be able to search that?
well, you go to the city council has a website. I do believe that Atlas also, which is a great tool, atlas.phila.gov. Every property in the city of Philadelphia has a page on it. It talks about, there's a property assessment page of like who owns the property, when they purchased it. They have a deed page where it shows like recently recorded documents such as deeds, mortgages, and such. And then there's an L&I section where it talks about, shows all the permits of public record previously against the property. And then there's a zoning page, which will say what the zoning classification of the property is. Are there any overlays associated with that property? And now I think if there's any pending ordinances again, or pending legislation against the property, I think they've recently updated that. But ultimately, if you're dealing with investment properties, whether it's me or someone else,
Right.
you really do want to hire an attorney, because I've seen situations where people, again, are paying like RM1 prices, and ultimately what they get is RSA 5,
Right.
which again kills any deal that they have. And now they're begging the community and the ZBA to allow them to use the property the way that was advertised for.
Right, and that is huge.
That's right.
Absolutely huge.
That's right.
You think you're buying a 3-unit or 4-unit property, and now it's a single family. Now, also, if a property is potentially like a 3-unit, but it's in a single family type of area, after a while, doesn't it automatically revert back to a single family? Is that a thing? Because somebody mentioned that to me before.
Yeah, so what happens is, so say we have a property that has a zoning permit for 3 units, and you're supposed to get a rental license, right? Every single year. It's like $50 for every single unit. If you don't have an active rental license for 3 or more years, then the city believes that the property's use has been discontinued as a matter of public record. Thus, then if you want to renew that rental license, they won't let you if it's more than 3 years. And they'll say, okay, well, you need to get a new rental license. Great. This is an RSA 5 property. I know it allowed previously for 3 units. Maybe the use was different back then. They either got a variance or they got like the zoning classification was different. All of a sudden, now they're saying you can only get a rental license for 1 unit. And that's where now you have to go back and go through the zoning variance process.
Yeah. Okay, so
you have to keep your rental licenses up. I've seen them more and more where people try to save that $50 a unit, and all of a sudden they're paying me a lot more than that to fix it.
Okay, great. That was some really, really interesting stuff. Now, the year-end review, where is that going to be posted?
So I write a monthly real estate column for the Legal Intelligencer, which is our real estate newspaper. But we also do, again, a monthly blog called Cracking the Code. If you go on our website and join our mailing list, you'll get both. Okay. You'll get every single month we give something very informative. Actually, when you were mentioning about the Homestead Exemption deadline, that was our last crack in the code. Okay. So again, every single month we try to give some information that is valuable to people. Right. There's so much information out there that there's nothing special about it. But the information that we give is like breaking news or information that will help or hurt you in some ways.
Okay. And you're in real estate law. What, besides, you already mentioned a paying customer, well, what is an ideal person that would use your services? And like what range could it be? Could it be a developer who's building a 50-unit apartment building, to a single person, all of the above? Who typically comes to you?
Everything you just said. We have clients that are newbies who don't know what they don't know, and we really give them a wealth of information, and we're their backstop. And then we have people who are we just finished phase 1 of a 600-unit project where we got zoning approval earlier this year, where we serve as our outside general counsel, and there's everything in between. It sounds very impressive when you say 600 units versus 1. It's really the same process. I'm big into basketball and in the Sixers. I talk about trusting the process.
Right.
You trust the process, whether it's a single family project or a 600-unit project. It's the same process. You file a zoning permit application with L&I. If it gets refused because it's not allowed as a right, you go to the zoning board of adjustment. You meet with the community. Sometimes it's easier to get the 600-unit project approved as opposed to the single family. It's all dependent on the circumstances. It's all human nature.
And you've been in Philadelphia so long, so you know the people, you know where to go, you know who you need to call. Of course, nobody's going to do you a favor, but at least you have contacts to, just to understand, hey, is this going to be possible? What do I have to do to get it done? So, that's super important. Okay, so if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, can you, what's the best way? Is it going on your website or how?
You can email me, Alan, ALAN .Nochumson, NOCHUMSON @Nochumson.com. So the biggest hurdle in emailing me is understanding how to spell my last name. But other than that, like, again, I love working with people. I love talking to people about real estate. It's a passion of mine. That's why not only do I practice law, I write about the law and I speak about the law.
And you teach.
And I teach.
That's
right.
Well, thanks a lot for being on the show. Really appreciate it. It's the second time being on.
Yes,
so
thank you.
I do appreciate it. You are a wealth of knowledge. That's why I always, call you up and say, hey, can you come in again? Give us an update, of what's going on for this year and next year. So I definitely appreciate it. Be sure to check out the website and be sure to get a hold of them. Even if you're just a realtor, just want some information, lunch and learns, you're a broker out there, you'll come out, you'll speak to the agents. There's a ton of topics that you will address, because actually I was at one of the events for a RE/MAX that you were at, so it was really good. Well, that's the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. I hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe. Give me some likes. It really helps out the show. And give me some comments, things that you would like us to talk about in the future. Remember, this show is everything real estate, no limits. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week.